Welcome back to the AfterHours podcast. I'm your host, Francisco Delator. Got Joey Prohaska with me today as the co-host, and we're joined with Jason Berry from the Blind Pig in Ann Arbor.
Hello.
How you doing today?
Good, man. Real good.
That's awesome. We just pulled up, and they're doing some construction on the front of the building, the street. So it's perfect time because coronavirus and all the establishments being closed down. So
yeah, we love it. It's almost like we planned it. There's a lot of development in this area. So from what I understand, the water system is antiquated. So they need to update it. So they have to dig deep in the street and pull everything up and replace it. And pretty major. So.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a big renovation then.
Yeah.
Well, Blind Pig is a music venue here in the heart of Ann Arbor. How did you get into music?
Well, when I was in first grade.
Okay. Take us way back. That's fine.
I mean, I think Kiss Alive 1 came out around that time. And Kiss got me into this concept of, man, I want to play guitar, got me into wanting to be a musician like that. And then, I'm just a music lover. And then I studied classical guitar in college and then always wanted to be in bands and stuff. So right out of school, I went to Detroit and jumped into bands right away. Even before I graduated, I joined a Detroit band and just got into the scene like that. Worked odd jobs and stuff. And then, waiter gigs and stuff out of college. And then was doing rehearsals at night, stuff like that. Had a really cool rehearsal space in Detroit at Russell Industrial Center. Like, it was cool. And then, but then as I got older, like, and we're talking like, 24, 25, I needed to make some money. And so I started to get like more serious jobs, right? Trying to like tell myself, oh no, I'm still a musician, but I just gotta get this bread and pay my rent, And then I got this one gig selling the paper rolls that you put in cash registers.
Yeah.
That print out your receipt.
Yeah.
There's this company in Troy now that does, I think it's called Discount Paper still, but they make the shit in the back so they can undersell anyone, right?
Okay.
So we would call around. There was this like Salesforce that I was on. And we'd call all over the country, getting the owners of gas stations and Burger Kings and anyone who used cash registers, right? That was like the best paying gig that I had, right? But it took the most time. I had to drive there. It took an hour to get there, hour to get back. Suddenly I was not a real musician anymore. I was just a guy who played guitar, So that started to be this existential crisis. I'm still in bands. I'm still trying to do my thing, playing the Blind Pig, stuff like that. And then I got headhunted by Ford. It was crazy. It was just like suddenly, hey, we'll pay you more than that to come do customer service at the Renaissance Center in Detroit.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I jumped at that mostly because it would cut my drive time down. I was like, okay, cool, better money, less drive time. I can still be a musician, but not really. I think you have to be at the job at like 5 a.m. so that I can't do gigs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're still out from the night before.
Right. 5 a.m. I'm just getting home at 5 a.m. Yeah, so my first day on the job was supposed to be February 3rd, 1997. And I woke up that day and my friend, who was actually a drummer from Ann Arbor, coincidentally, who was also like hustling, trying to do his thing, he was supposed to come get me. And then we were going to drive down the Renaissance Center. He's coming to get me like 4:30 in the morning or something. It was insane. And I've never been a morning person anyways, let alone a musician trying to do this. So the very first fucking day, I wake up and I'm just like, man, fuck this. And I called my friend, I'm like, forget it, man. Just go do you. I'm jobless now. You know what I mean? I'm not doing this. And I went upstairs with my dad. He was asleep, of course. And I'm like, wake him up. I'm like, Dad, if I can't do music, then fuck it. I'm not doing any job ever again, just music. And I don't care what that means. And it might mean I'm sleeping on your couch for a long fucking time. Are you cool with that? Right? This is my dad. He looks at it, he's like, just feed yourself and we're good. No, you don't gotta pay rent, but feed yourself and you got a deal. right? So I'm like, yes, fuck jobs, you know? The next day, February 4th, right, I get up and I'm like, I'm thinking, because I'm in bands and stuff, that I'm gonna write music all day. I'm the leader of my band. I write all the songs. I like everything. I write all the parts and stuff. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, now I got time to do this. And instead, I found myself gravitating towards all the other bands in the scene that I saw were doing it wrong, in my opinion. Like, the main thing I saw was that bands were, the bands in my scene, the bands that I did shows with and stuff, they were doing things like taking out bank loans to put out records, but they don't really play anywhere besides Detroit. So, like, a friend of mine was in a band and he took out this $15,000 loan to put out a record. I'm like, he's like, I'm committed. I'm like, yeah, I know, but how you gonna make that money back? Like, you play the same clubs in Detroit every month. Like, you're gonna sell 50 records and that's it. And then you still got thousands of. I'm like, you gotta get out, man. You gotta play other towns. You gotta go play Lansing, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Flint, Toledo. Like, you're in Detroit. Like, come on, get out there. He's like, oh, I work a job. I don't have time to do that. Well, I'm like, bro, I got all the time in the world. Like, I'll book your band. Just pay the phone bill. Or no, it wasn't even. I told him, just give me 5% of the money you make. So, so was me getting into the music business, because that was February, let's give it February 8th by the time I had this conversation with him that year. By the end of that summer, dude had made all his money back. I had gotten him into all these cities just in that short amount of time. And then I got him, the key thing was I got him up north in Traverse City and all this. And he started doing these gigs. Like, the promoters up there liked this band, so they kept rebooking him. And he would go up there, do these gigs where he'd do 3 sets a night, leave his shit on stage, come back the next night, do 3 more sets. And they pay him like, $750 a night, whatever. And so, yeah, we just had him up there and he loved it. I'm just in my dad's, living room, like making calls, whatever. And I'm still, I'm in bands and whatever, but I'm finding myself drawn more and more and more to helping other bands.
Directing other bands.
Yeah, that gives me more of a jolt than playing a show, developing my shit, whatever. And at the time it was a rock band, but so the word kind of spread, and then other bands started asking me to book tours for them. So I was like, yeah, sweet, give me 5% or whatever. And I should have been asking them to pay my phone bill, because at the time it was enormous. You had to pay for that shit, right?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So, and I'm
That was
on the
before
phone.
my time.
Yeah, I'm on the phone all day long. So my phone bills were enormous. And then I'd get this little 5% of nothing that people were making. And it wouldn't even cover the phone bill. It's rough. But then, instead of just regional bands, now bands were starting to ask me to book them on tours. So I did a tour just again for my dad's living room, just doing a 6-week tour. I took this band, completely unknown band. Like, if you guys formed a band right now, I took that band and schlepped them out for 6 weeks. Got them gigs all the way down south to New Orleans, and then took them all the way out up the coast, all the way back through Chicago. Right, 6 weeks, just any gig I could get, obviously. And I was like, I literally sent the band. It was my first time ever doing that. I sent the band out, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna have all these horror stories. People are gonna treat them bad. You know what I mean? They're unknown. They're gonna play to nobody. Blah blah blah. Man, this band came back talking about send us back. Like again. So that got out. I sent them back out, and then these Planet Ant, which still exists in Detroit, in in Hamtramck. It's like a theater group. The guy at the time, Hal, who owned it, he heard about me booking these tours, and he had a band named Park that he wanted out. He was like, they're unknown, but I got cash. Like, let's really send them out. You know what I mean? And by that point, I was in Ann Arbor, couch surfing in Ann Arbor. And I had hustled my way into Prism Productions, which was booking Ann Arbor. And I had told Lee, the guy who owned the company, I was like, yeah, if you let me in, I'll give you half the money I make on these tours. Just let me book them on your phone. You pay that phone bill, I'll give you half this money. And he was like, yeah, whatever, you know. And he brought me in, but the reason he brought me in was really not for he knew he was an OG at that time, you know what I mean? So he knew it was utter bullshit what I was talking about. Like there was no money to be made on these tours. This was just a kid trying to hustle and get into the game, you know, whatever. But that's small potatoes, right? He really wanted someone to help him book the Blind Pig. And he had a guy, but no one liked him, I guess. And he was booking his friends, but it's not bands who drew people, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Stuff like that, doing favors for people, whatever. I don't really even remember what it all was, but they were unhappy with it. And so when I come walking in there, you know, talking about, hey, let me book tours, he was like, yeah, okay, you can sit next to him. You know, so he had me coming in, sitting next to the guy who booked the pig, and just like learning, like a quarterback, you know, backup, you know. And then that just kind of turned into me getting it outright, you know. The guy left, and he was actually, that was actually, oh man, I forget what band he was in, but it was a really big band that this guy was the drummer in. But anyways, that's how I got in the game. And then I was working for Lee, booking the pig, and then there was this situation where what is Live Nation now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The origins, it started out with a guy, Sillerman, who went around the country and bought up all these promoters who put on shows. He bought them on, kind of was like, okay, now we're going to be one company, right? And so he pretty much bought everybody. Every fucking promoter, and he systematically bought everyone out. And then sold the whole thing to Clear Channel. Clear Channel did it for a while and then spun it off into what is now Live Nation. Okay? Around the time Sillerman was first doing that shit was when I was booking the pig in the first couple of years. And then the pig was basically faced with a decision where they either had to go that corporate route, right? Or they had to just roll the dice with this kid. I was doing insubordinate shit anyways at this point. Like I was still doing tours and they didn't want me to do tours because it made no money, you know. But
so
I was
around like what year was this?
This was 1999.
Okay.
When I was like, when, you know, tours were still happening and I was just sort of going rogue and this kind of thing, not even realizing at the time what I was doing, but I was out of my mind. So, eventually I quit. I always thought I was fired, but every time I've said that in the past, Lee Berry's like, no man, you quit. so one of them happened. I'll just say for the record now I quit, but I remember I was walking down the street and I called the owners of the pig like, okay, well, it looks like, you know, I'm fired from prison, so I'm just gonna be a tour manager or whatever, be in bands or whatever. And they're like, no. We're just gonna roll. We're just gonna let you do it. We got a little money. We'll let you book bands, you know, and whatever. And I'm like, okay, sure. And there was a storage room upstairs, mm-hmm. and they cleared it out for me. And there happened to be a couple desks up there, and we just turned it into the booking office. And so yeah, that was a long ass time, 20 years ago.
So have you worked here since then?
Yeah, ever since.
Oh wow.
Same gig ever since. Me and Faith. Who was just painting. She's the GM, and she came in. I came in September of '97, right? Is when I got the gig. She got the gig as a waitress here, November of that same year. So we've basically been here this whole time together, just doing it together. So that's definitely our secret weapon here, you know. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the pig's got a great story.
And so you're now the talent coordinator, talent director.
I'm me and Faith are managing partners now, and she's also the GM, and I'm also the talent buyer still.
Cool. Why do you think that you were more successful than most people back in like the late 90s, you know, at your job, booking gigs, sending people on tours and stuff like that?
Primarily because I was too stupid to know that it was ridiculous to send an unknown band out on a 6-week tour. Like, you're never gonna ever get anyone to do that for you because it's insane. Like,
But you did it.
There's no money. Everyone you're talking to, you're basically conning them. You know, it's like, so you know, the University of Madison, right? I need to get a gig there. Oh yeah, these guys are alumni. They just graduated last year. I'm like, yeah, they're part of that frat. They get all their friends down there. That's why I was like scared when I sent them out. I was like, oh man, the promoter's gonna be expecting all this.
Yeah.
But the truth was that all the clubs I'm talking to, all the people in the game, they know I'm bullshitting. You know what I mean? They just needed a fucking band to be on that gig. You know, it was just me having all the time in the world. You know? So like, for example, the guy that first band who I said made all their money back real quick.
Yeah.
It was because I was able to hunt down a particular promoter up north who was just impossible to reach. But I would sit there and take notes. Like, okay, 5 o'clock, you know, unavailable, you know, and it was hilarious because I'd actually learned how to track people down like that from the sales gig that I was running from. You know, the sales gig that made me like, oh, I can't do this. I totally learned how to do phones from that gig. So that's another reason why I was like particularly good at it. Because if I couldn't reach you, like I was used to that. If you know, and I'm having to I was used to having to hunt down a gas station owner and get him to spend 30 seconds on the phone, and then I have to convince him to, you know, buy my shit because it's cheaper than your shit, you know. So this club shit was nothing.
Yeah.
You know? So that's why.
Yeah, when you mentioned that you started like booking tours and you were able to convince them, you know, they're alumni or they're part of this organization, whatever. Yeah, I feel like you'd be a very good salesman.
Yeah. One time I hit it to New York City when I was really young. I was in between freshman and sophomore year of college. And I was just like, I'm just going to New York. And I hit it, I crashed with someone for 2 weeks, and I spent all that time trying to get jobs and just being laughed out of everywhere I went. But this one guy in this one office, I didn't even know what the fuck I was up there for. But I was hustling him so hard. He was like, man, if I needed a salesman, I'd hire your ass today. You know? But I don't. So get the fuck out. Yeah, man.
That's wild. Oh.
So what's your favorite part about running the Blind Pig?
The best thing ever is when you get to literally fuck with a band right out of the garage. Like, dude had an idea to form a band, right? Rehearses, finally starts playing house gigs, whatever. Finally gets a little thing going, feels like he can call me for a gig, right? The best feeling in the world is to watch those bands develop. And then I've been here 20 years, so a few of them have went all the way, you know what I mean? And gotten $1 million record deals and all this. And to think that, like, man, you know, they called me and I was cool with them, you know what I mean? It's like we feel really genuinely beholden to the local musicians, you know, like we have a huge responsibility to not be dicks to them and because we realize like the Pig is a 400 cap room, you know, you can't just come out of the garage and play here, you know what I mean? So we're constantly trying to come up with situations where we can take bands who are brand spanking new and just kind of slot them in, you know, and that's definitely the hardest part of all of it, you know, is working with brand new bands and getting them going and trying to get them through. But everything they do, every little success they have, you feel like it's your success, you know what I mean? And every time they come and they play and then they go from 100 to 150 to 200, I mean, you're just like, wow, I helped them with that, you know? So that feeling hasn't really changed. I mean, that's the same feeling I had helping that band make their money back. It's the same thing. It's just that juice from knowing that, like, well, I'm in this position where I'm watching not just your band, but every band try to do the exact same thing. They're in a million different genres and stuff like that, but they're all trying to do the same thing. So to be able to see a band coming up, see that people are responding to that band, and to maybe say, oh, I know you would, this hip hop artist would never in a million years be talking to this death metal guy in Flint. But if they did, that would be sweet. And you can like link people up and stuff like that, and you can get connections going and stuff. Like over the years, you get to see it, and it's not just bands; it's also like industry people, you know. So like I was working, for example, up with a club in Flint, and it was short-lived, you know, but I got to meet this kid Justin, who was just all about it, you know what I mean? And it was like, wow, he's so obviously would thrive in any sort of music business set. And so I was able to link him up with this kid Scotty in East Lansing, you know what I mean? And just get that connection going. So perhaps there will be, and you know, you're doing all this, we're all doing all this because in so doing, you know that, okay, well now bands are gonna have a little bit easier time. When they're bubbling up in Flint, they're gonna be talking to Justin, and they're gonna be like, damn, how do we get into Lansing? He'll be like, oh, let me call Scott, who we met because I linked him up. You know what I'm saying? And this is true for everyone in Michigan who's in the business. You're just trying to make Michigan the most linked up, the most like, if you're big in Detroit, you're gonna get your shot in Grand Rapids. If you're big in Grand Rapids, you'll get on some gigs to see if U of M will respond to you. It's like we're all kind of striving for that, you know, and that's just a never-ending struggle, you know. But it's sort of what, I mean, you can ask anybody. They're really probably mostly jazzed by the shit they see going on in local phenomena, you know, because the tours are kind of automatic. So I don't really feel like I can take any credit, you know, for getting Wiz Khalifa's first play. I mean, where the fuck else was he gonna play? I mean, this is Ann Arbor. The agent wasn't going, oh, let's bring him to Ann Arbor because Jason's there. You know what I mean? Me and him were super tight, and we did have a great relationship, me and his agent, you know. And he loves me and I love him, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, I named my kid after that guy. But it wasn't because of me. And Peter would never just give him to me as a favor. You know what I mean? So it's just merely me managing the Blind Pigs relationship with agents. That's that touring job. And that shit's gonna happen if I get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like somebody is gonna step in and do it because that shit is automatic. That's bigger than me. That's bigger than the pig, you know? If the pig went down on this coronavirus shit, you know what I mean? Anyone with a space can then funnel all the shows that were going to be at the pig. You know, it's like, it's not the pig necessarily, it's U of M. You know, it's a million motherfucking kids who like live music, who listen to these kind of bands, who need a space about this big. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the pig is at the vortex of something. That's most of the legendary clubs in America kind of are like that. So for example, you have the most legendary, the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. They're just at the fucking they're the first stop out of New York City. Come on, you know? And then plus you've got Seth Hurwitz, who's just a genius, running the whole game, you know what I mean? From ancient times, you know? That's pretty much every scene in America that's really pumping, you know? Brock in Toledo, you know? Guy's been there since I picked up a guitar. Brock's been fucking running shows in Toledo, you know what I mean? All he's trying to do is make the Ohio scene dope, you know what I mean? He just wants that feeling of, I helped this shit be better. I helped musicians, you know, go from here to here. Wherever they go after that, hopefully, you know, they do well. But while they were in my little slice, they were treated well. You know what I mean? Yeah. They don't have a bunch of negative fucking stories to tell about their experience coming up through the Ann Arbor scene. You know, we have, for example, Wolfpack, right? Those cats are Ann Arbor. They're like U of M guys, U of M music scene, right? It's like, I remember doing talks like this, right? Where Theo Katzman is in the audience asking me like ridiculous questions, you know? And then like a few years later, it's like, wait, that's Theo and Wolfpack, you know what I mean? And then a few years later, it's like, wait, Wolfpack just sold out Madison Square Garden. That's still Theo, like what the fuck, you know? So that's that shit I'm talking about, you know what I mean? To see them blow up and to know that they didn't have some shitty time at the Pig. They didn't come up through Ann Arbor despite the Blind Pig, you know what I'm saying? They all played here. I think their first ever live show was here, if I'm not mistaken. They did this crazy tour, you know. But shit like that, that's what Brock lives for, that's what I live for, that's what everybody lives for. So.
Yeah, it just sounds like you guys, everyone in the space, really enjoys contributing to something bigger than themselves.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Seeing that success further beyond just their region and maybe nationwide, you know?
Yeah, and it extends, like I said, it extends throughout the industry in Michigan. So I compete like hell with Elk Club and Magic Stick and Loving Touch and all that, but man, you don't want to see none of those cats go down. You know what I mean? Like I always tell Dave at Majestic, like, bro, I need you to fucking thrive. You know what I mean? At all costs, you know? Because for some reason, when the Majestic is banging, like they are right now, you know what I mean? Before, not right now.
Not right now, but
Yeah.
But the last couple of years, like they were on a fucking all-time high. And so were we all. You know what I mean? It just, the more shows that come, the more shows that come.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. So the more active we're all buying and fighting and scrapping and dying for every fucking show. I remember when A$AP Rocky's first play was coming through, right? Mm-hmm. And I had done Wiz Khalifa, I had done Mac Miller, everybody's first play. So I'm just getting cocky about that shit. Like if you're dope and you're hip hop and this is your first time through, what the fuck? Like if you play anywhere else, I might not fuck with you no more. You know what I mean? I'm starting to get a chip on my shoulder. So, but it's all in the game, you know? I remember the only reason I got it came down to me and the Crowfoot. And we do this to each other, right? I'm like, nobody wants to drive all the way to Pontiac. You're gonna make the heads drive. We're just gonna be smoking pot. Well, you're gonna, you know, I'm just like, all the heads, everyone will come to Ann Arbor.
Right.
And we're going back and forth, and we're sending in competing bids and shit. And they'll tell you this. I finally go, I'm like, tell that motherfucker everything in Ann Arbor is purple. Because like his song had just come out, you know what I mean? And that got it. That fucking got it. He was like, whoa, this guy like listens to my shit. Like, he was brand new. He was brand new at the time. And yeah, man, that I love that about the tours. Fighting for shows is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like a relationship where you don't need other people to thrive, but it helps because then it just makes Michigan like a better scene in general for, you know, musicians and those coming up. You know?
The worst fucking thing that can happen is we're fighting for a fucking show,
Right.
and the show skips Detroit. That's losing.
Yeah.
If they play El Club, it's like, that's fine. The next time I have a much better shot at getting them next time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like bands play once. You know what I mean? They put out records, they tour, it's whatever.
Right.
We're not living and dying on tours. It's really the local music that sustains us.
Yeah.
Like COVID-19, this shit right here. When we come up, there's no tours in sight. Like nobody's getting no fucking tours in America. You know what I mean? For 2020, you know what I mean? Everybody, the tours are just like, nah.
All local artists for sure.
Yeah. So, while it sounds cool when we say, oh, we're all about the local music. It's like, no, man, we have to be about the local music. We don't, no club our size or smaller survives without a healthy relationship. Every time the Pig has suffered, it's been because we, for one reason or another, we're sort of on the outs with the local scene. That's when shit falls apart.
When you start prospecting all these guys that are coming up from, underground or their, first live show is here, like Mac Miller, do you just know right away that they're going to be like successful?
No. So Wiz Khalifa is a good example.
Mm.
I got him because the agent was like, bro, we need to play Ann Arbor with this.
Right.
I had no idea who he was.
Did you hear his shit beforehand or anything like that?
Yeah, when he called me, when an agent hits you up about someone, if you're not familiar with them, they send you, here, check this out. Here's his MySpace at the time.
Sorry, that's our photographer.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you were asking me, like, do I just know these guys are dope?
Yeah, like when you hear their shit for the first time. No. Okay.
Mac Miller, yes. Mac Miller, definitely yes. But I was gonna do Mac Miller just because of the Wiz cosign. Because Wiz had played here and sold it out, so it was like, all right, whatever he says, I'm cool with,
Yeah.
But they sent me Mac Miller, and I was like, oh no, that's fucking dope.
Yeah.
So that is
dope.
one of the few. That's literally one of the few where I was certain that it would be real smart to get this guy's first play.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
the Wiz Khalifa thing was during the MySpace era, and we picked up the show because of the agent, where it was like he had given me so many great shows. I was like, man, I'll just take whatever. And to this day, I'll just take whatever he gives me sight unseen. I barely have to look it up before I'll say yes. But at the time, he was like, yeah, no, here. I was like, how much you want? He's like, give me $5,000. I'm like, okay, bet. I was just totally in the tank for this agent, but then we put it up on sale, and it didn't sell at all. We sold 20 tickets. 3 days later, we're at 35 tickets. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired. I just spent $5,000 on somebody. Oh my God, I'm just freaking out. And my assistant, Zach Taco, who is now the man over at the Majestic, doing all their promo and ticketing and all this. At the time, he was my assistant upstairs, and I was like, how is this possible? Look at his MySpace jukebox. It's got more plays than Kanye West right now. And it's noon, right? I was like, how? Why do we only have... And Zach's like, dude, if he's got that many plays at noon or whatever time it was, those are kids. He was like, this show is 18 plus. That's why it's not selling. So we switched it. That moment, we put it out, all ages. That shit was sold out in 3 days. It was like, boom. So, I mean, you could do a Wiz show now all 21 plus. I mean, that was so long ago, but yeah, that was great. That was a great story. And that Wiz Khalifa is one of the nicest people who's ever played this room.
Really?
In its entire history.
I actually
He's one of
went.
the sweetest, nicest people of all time.
That's awesome. I actually went to a Wiz and Snoop concert at DTE about 4 years ago. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, cool.
He had his money going. He was smoking on stage.
Yeah.
So you said Wiz has been through here. Mac Miller. Is there any other
Macklemore.
Macklemore?
Macklemore was great too. He had one of the most meteoric rises because he literally, his first 2 plays in the Detroit market were the Blind Pig. His next play was St. Andrews, and then his next play was the Palace.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was just boom, But he was another one who was just really, really sweet, and him and Ryan Lewis couldn't make a gig, and it had to be rescheduled. But he was literally blowing up so fast that it was kind of ridiculous for him to stop, come back, play a rescheduled Blind Pig Day. That was crazy, right?
Yeah.
His shit is on the radio and stuff.
Yeah.
But he totally did it. He totally came in, walked in alone. You know what I mean? He was just like, yeah, I'm here, let's do it. That is the most common story. Most of these cats are just great people because the whole industry, we're all just flowing together. So it's all about let's all just have no incidents. Let's just party and have fun. And that's from the artists to the managers to the agents to the buyers to the venue people to the bartenders. That's really cool too. That's a really good, fun aspect of this job is being so connected. And the longer you're in, the more you connect. With all the venues in the state that you're working in and helping them out, and giving them advice and getting advice and sharing information and just trying to make the scene better. You know, you just never want to be some shitty scene. You just never want to hear no story about your scene being the shit. Oh man, the scene fucking sucked. I couldn't wait to move my band out of, you know. It's like, ew. That's the fucking worst, man. But that's all about, again, that all goes back to that working with local music and trying to doing what you can, you know. So.
Do you have any interesting stories from the venue in general with the customers, people who come in? Have you seen anything crazy happen?
Yeah, I mean, just, you know, just normal stuff. You know, people get drunk. They get asked to leave. They do stupid shit. They get asked to leave. Sometimes they object.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get dragged out. I don't, you know, but not that often. I mean, it used to be like that, you know, when me and Faith first started, I guess. There you'd see more craziness. But nowadays it's really pretty chill. Like you get the craziness when you have a clash of culture, when it's like you get a show where it's all ages, and it truly is kids, right? But they've never been to a bar before. You know, they're just kids, so they don't know how to act. You know, you get madness like that. So a super famous Blind Pig story comes from like the 80s when the Circle Jerks were playing here. And the owner, Roy, like did this, he agreed to do this fucking all ages show. And I guess the crowd just went berserk. Like literally just coming, tearing shit off the wall, tearing the banister. And Roy is there and he's just like, what the fuck, you know? So he lets the show happen. He gets that money off the bar. But then when the band comes to get paid, he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You owe me money. Like, you know. So those kind of nutso stories, it's almost like the further back you go, the more Wild Wild West it gets. You know what I mean? There's a good story with Machine Gun Kelly.
Ohio,
yeah.
Cleveland boy.
Yep.
Yeah, and that was great because he was so hot that I had no idea I could even had a shot at him. Right? He was so fucking already hot, and it was so cool because I just called his friend, who's his manager, right? Like he probably was like, "Hey, Machine Gun, you want to play the blood?" You know, it was like that at the time. That was the crew he rolled with. He didn't have an agent. He didn't have all this shit. But he was doing quite well, all on his own. Like he's a great example of an artist who went a very long way with no one, just him and his boys, literally, you know. So, but yeah, he came in. That's the first time I ever bought. Wiz Khalifa was the first time I ever bought tank tops and condoms on a rider. And then Machine Gun Kelly's rider was like almost identical. But yeah, that was funny. But he was really nice, right? Mm-hmm. But he's fucking nuts, right? He's like, he gets fucking wild. So that was one of the loudest, wildest shows I've ever seen here. And I was only here for a second, but my God, it was just nuts. And it was all girls. It was like a stripper show or something, you know what I mean? It was nuts. 400 girls and like a handful of guys just tearing at him. But we used to get hotels for everybody. Mm-hmm. And we'd send them up to the Best Western. And we sent Machine Gun Kelly up there. But we didn't know, like he had blown up, right? So at that point, he had MTV following him around with cameras, and we sort of knew that, but weren't really paying attention. So he goes to the fucking hotel, and they want content. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So he wants he gets naked, and him and all his groupies or whatever go crash the pool. It's closed, of course, but they crash it and wake up everybody. And next thing I know, I've got, the show's over, but it's like 3 a.m. and I'm getting calls from the hotel like, what the fuck? Get this guy, stop this guy. We can't do shit. We're calling the cops, And that was like, they were like threatened because he did massive damage, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they were like looking at us like, who's paying for that? And we were like, not us, So we just booked the hotel, whatever. So yeah, that's the reason why the pig no longer ever books hotels for fucking nobody. Well, like, we give references.
Right.
Like, we got a rate over here.
Yeah.
That's all you get.
So that's funny.
That's wild as fuck.
Yeah.
God damn.
Shit like that. We get wild shit happening, like, way more than I'm saying, but it's like you get so used to it that only the really intense shit jumps out. There's diggable planets. Here's some intense shit. Okay? You know who that is?
I do not.
Diggable planets. Okay, you know who the Fugees are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Diggable Planets is sort of like the original Fugees.
Okay.
From way back in the day. They won a Grammy and shit. But they did a 25th anniversary reunion tour. And this is a really, really highly respected hip-hop act. And we prided ourselves on just the finest quality hip-hop here, And so it was really expensive, and it was sort of a long shot, like, do these kids remember Diggable Planets, whatever. And we did the show, and it sold out, and it was great, right? And the band, they're kind of amazing. They run with the same band they've had this entire time. So 25 years, it's the same band that they had when they started in Brooklyn or wherever, that they have to this day. So they're touring with the same bass player, same drummer, same whatever, same sound man. It's all in the game. Well, I'm like, they were very difficult to manage. Let's just put it that way. We fucked up their rider. We made some mistakes with them that they were not happy with. and I'm just like, oh my God. I was petrified the whole night, basically. Like, I was really developing a fear of Butterfly because this dude just seemed so pissed at me, right, all night. So we finally get them. My man had come through like, hey, do you want to smoke some pot? I've got this great pot, right? And I was like, hell no, I don't want to get fucked up because this guy's gonna kill me, you know what I mean? So we finally, literally, I'm standing with my man, and we're at the alley, at the top of the alley, and Diggable is going down the alley and up to go on stage. Like, we finally, and for me, once the act is on stage, that's like kind of the first time I can go, okay, damn, right? So they go on stage. I hear the crowd erupt. So I'm like, okay, let's smoke that pot. I'm literally outside the club just chiefing, right? Feeling victorious. And then I look up, I pass the thing, I look up, Diggable is walking back up the alley, right? With this grave expression. And all I'm thinking is, the sound system blew up. I'm thinking, oh my God, like somebody threw a bottle at them, like something is nuts. Man, they come out and say, we gotta go to the hospital because our bass player just died.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yes. I was like, what? And keep in mind how high I am, right? So I feel like, wow, I hope they never even hear this because I'm still fucked up over this story. Because he didn't really die. All right, let's say that right off top. He didn't really die. It's just his heart stopped. And like, this was a thing with him. But he like had done this in the past where it's like he fucking literally dies and gets brought back.
Oh shit.
Like, what the fuck? This man should not be touring. That's what I'm thinking. But they were literally like, okay, first things first, let's get to the hospital. They literally, Diggable fucking Planets piles into my shitty car. The bass player, who's on the verge here, is in between them. The tour manager piles into my trunk. I'm stoned as fuck. And I gotta get them all to the hospital. So I thankfully, there was a fucking ambulance on its way, like with the lights on. So I just am like, follow the ambulance, right? Because really don't know how to get directly to U of M Hospital. Like, I just had never done that yet, you know, even though I live here. So, yeah, we got him there. I'm thinking the show is destroyed. I'm thinking we have no show, of course. I'm thinking about refunding tickets and da-da-da. They're like, no, get us back to the club. I'm like, what? What?
Your boy's about to die over here.
Yeah, your boy's dying. They're like, oh, no, that happens all the time. I'm like, what? You don't have a bass player, right? Well, at the very least, you know what I'm like? They're like, no. The sound guy is a bass player too. He knows all the parts. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, just like surreal. I drive them back to the club. They go down. They play the show. It's butter. I take them back to the hospital after. And the trippiest part for me was that they never, even though they had put me through all this, they never were nice to me ever. Like I was being hazed, you know what I mean? I felt like I was being hazed because I fucked up their rider and all this shit, so they were just gonna put me through it. So that's why they were like, when they came back up, they're like, our bass player died. You know what I mean? I feel like they like put me through it more. But that's probably the fucking most nutso shit ever happened to me here. But it's a great story.
It'd be hard
That's
to
wild.
If you had one that topped that, I would be surprised.
Yeah. I feel like bad for outing that bass player, but goddamn, like that is not a well-kept secret because that happens all the time. You know what I mean? So.
You know it's bad when your sound guy is picking up his parts.
Oh man, like butter, oh yeah, no, we do this all the time. I'm like, oh my God. But
Second string, you're in. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. But it's crazy, man, because even though you get treated harsh, right? Even though you go through that, you still just love them. You know what I mean? You just love them for being out here entertaining everybody and da-da-da. You just still, it's hard to stay mad at a band or a musician, you know? I try to keep a shit list, but I forget. You fucked up, didn't you? Oh, damn it.
Maybe I don't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, right?
So you guys book like some pretty hot gigs, I'd say, because I seen that you guys had YBN Corday. You were going to have 24K Golden, I believe.
Yep, he was opening. Yeah, that was great. And him and my son got along great. That was really sweet. Because my son's like 12 years old. And so these guys come in and he break dances and shit. So they just love him. And he's so calm and collected around rock stars now. You know what I mean? So yeah, him and Talib are cool. And like, he's cooler with these cats than I am, you know? Because he just walks right up to him. Hey, man, are you going to perform this song tonight? You know what I mean? He like came up to Young Gravy.
Yeah.
We had Young Gravy play. And he challenged the opener to a dance-off. So I come down and there's a crowd around my son and him and the opener. I forget the guy's name, but it was nuts. And then him and Young Gravy are just kicking it up in my office. And I'm just like, wow, you know, and I'm like, I don't even talk to artists this way, you know what I mean? So I was just like taking advantage, like asking Young Gravy about his past and shit, because my son totally disarms him. So yeah, he's talking to an industry guy, but he's sort of like talking to Corbin at the same time. So it's like, wow, you know, and I'm like having him explain to Corbin how he came up. He had just graduated out of fucking school. Or no, not even. He had left school because he was blowing up. So he's like, fuck, I gotta go make some money. And he took his producer, like went with him, and like that, it was kind of fucked up because they had like promising, like, you know, academic careers going, you know. And it was hilarious because I'm like, Young Gravy's just sitting on my fucking futon, you know, and my son's checking him out. And then I go, we're asking him all these crazy questions, and I'm like, what did you major in? He goes, marketing. And I was like, of course.
That's funny.
Yeah, we love Young Gravy here. So.
Do you notice that there's a big difference between like the new age rappers and then the people that came up before them, like when you started back in the late 90s?
Yeah, you know, last year was a great year for hip hop for us because we had artists like KRS-One, we had J Electronica, but we also had JID. You know, we had a bunch of like new guys. Then we just had Cameron, you know. So it's like we get a really great constant blend of old and new. And like I would just say the new guys are like, there's no difference anymore between a hip hop tour and a rock tour. They're all super well organized. There's just like, there used to be a much more marked difference where it was more raw, where you were like, when we first booked KRS-One, I booked it with his wife. You know what I mean? When Machine Gun, you call his friend, you know what I mean? And then he comes in and it's wild because he's not used to touring yet. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't know any sort of like accepted protocol. Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm fucking
going crazy.
Kelly, like, here's my rider, where are my t-shirts? You know, right. Like, you know? And Danny Brown was great too. Like, he comes in, it was his first ever headlining show ever. Because he like had a thing, I guess, about like that, just he didn't want that kind of attention. And he was totally blown up, like it was a surprise, like, word, he has never, you know? So he comes and plays the Blind Pig, and we're expecting an entourage. It's Danny Brown, you know what I mean? And it's Detroit. So
yeah, it's legend.
Yeah, we're like, there's gonna be a huge Detroit contingent walking in with him, and bitches and bottles, and we don't know what to expect, and a crazy rider and whatever. No, he just walked in. He's all by himself. He just fucking walked in. And we're all standing around because it's like, it's not even time yet. And dude just walks in, and we're like, wait, that's Danny Brown. He just, you know what I mean? And he set that whole shit up all by himself, and then people trickled in. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, again, he's sort of like a good midway, because he's got a very old school worldview, I would say. I feel like, I mean, Danny is like, old heads love him. You know what I mean? New kids love him. So he to me is a really good representation of the midpoint. Mm-hmm. And his shit is so freaky, but it's still like, heads love it. And like, I booked Danny Brown once at Alvin's in Detroit, way like 20 goddamn years ago, right? It was so long ago, maybe 15, but it was a long time ago. And he was just on a bill with a bunch of other Detroit acts. Man, he murdered them. He murdered everyone. Like, his whole rise, like, he's always been the dopest MC on any show he's been on. But like, so that was wild. Shit like that kind of blows your mind. When we did Royce the 5'9" and DJ Premier.
Nice.
Like, they were just sitting in front of that Blind Pig sign. And DJ Premier is on our stage, like, warming up on these turntables that Chill Will had given us from WCBN. We always rent gear from him. So it was just so trippy. Like, that's fucking DJ Premier, you know what I mean? And that's Royce. So you're just, you know? Like, to this day, we still get little goosebumps and shit. And when YBN Corday was like, so cool, so nice to work with, he's saying shit to my son like, stay in school. He's like, it's like, dude, what? I thought you guys were drugs and weed and, you know, and bitches and this. No, they were both like that. Golden, 24 karat Golden was also like that. Just like, oh my God. I'll never forget this. 24 karat Golden, when he was leaving, him and my son were kicking his soul. They were just grooving, right? They just were really on each other's wavelength, it felt like. And my son's 12, he's like 20 or whatever. And on his way out the door, they had talked my son into dancing for him. So he had done a little exhibition up there. And I wasn't even there to see that. But then I come up and I'm like paying his manager and stuff or whatever, or YBN's manager. And Golden gets up and you can tell he wants to say something to my son, right? And he just gets up and he goes, whatever you do, follow your dreams. And he leaves, he's like, I'm living proof the date will come true. And he's literally like embarrassed to be saying it so real like that. He runs out the room. And it was just like, wow, that was fucking great, you know, to get to see shit like that. Just, you know, and then I didn't even know who he was. So it's just like, wow, who's that guy who was grooving with my son? And I'm looking at his videos like, oh shit.
Valentino, that's a good song.
Yeah, you know, and it's like, wow, he's actually, because, you know, then you listen to his music and he's like talking that bullshit, but then you're like, wait, well, we already know that you're, he studied business at like UCLA or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we already know that that's not really you. You know what I mean? Like, you're actually a really good dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, shit like that. As you can see, it just, I love stuff like that and seeing these guys come up and seeing. So the difference is really just that people are just not ashamed to be normal anymore. They're not ashamed to not do drugs.
They're not trying to front.
They're not trying to front at all. Like, I remember we did Trinidad James, not to just live on hip hop shows here, because we don't just do hip hop. It's just that I personally love hip hop so much. So, but we did Trinidad James, right? And this is kind of a one-hit wonder type of guy. Not that he was a dick or nothing. You know what I mean? He was cool like everybody else, but he pulls up in a giant tour bus. Right? We know them damn things are at least 5,000 a day, right? To be able to pull those out, you gotta be balling to even roll in one of those. Everybody today, even the ones who are balling, don't roll in tour buses anymore. They roll in these Mercedes vans, you know? So, yeah, he comes out of that. His tour manager's just like, yeah, you gotta have all his rider. You know, so we got bottles for him. And they're like, take it on the bus. You know? So I'm sitting there, me and one other person got bottles of Hennessy and this and that. And we walk up on this tour bus and literally there's no fucking place to put them. They're opening the cupboards in the kitchen area. They're filled with bottles from the other promoter from yesterday and the day before and the day before. They're just, you know, it's just so stupid, right? It's just such a stupid way to roll. And no one does that anymore. No one tours like that. No one tours in excess. No one tours like with a gang of people. You know what I mean? Like when Trinidad came off the bus, it was comical because we're waiting on him to come off, and he comes up, and it's almost like you can hear his music playing. You know what I mean? It sounds like a video, and he's all slow, and then there's just a line of people behind him coming out, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're spending all this money we're paying you. It's probably you're in the hole just today on what you're spending, you know. So yeah, like after a while, you can kind of tell who's touring right and who's not going to be around anymore.
Yeah.
So how about JID? I know he's with Dreamville and everything like that. How is he here?
He was great. I mean, again, those guys are an example, and Earth Gang, right? Another one, same thing. Just a total example of they're just unassuming. They're up in the dressing room, like you know, they'll either chill out at their hotel or they'll come here and chill out here. But either way, it's so unassuming that it gives off like an aura where you just leave them alone. You just want to not fuck with them. You know what I mean? We had Michelle Obama here. Sasha, the daughter who's going to U of M.
Yeah.
She was here for a show, and again, it was like the way she rolled and stuff was so unassuming but at the same time highly choreographed. But it was just like almost like, wow, is that just the vibe nowadays? Like if you front, that is just so whack. You know what I mean? Like there's no front. JID, there was no front. Earth Gang, we treat them. I don't know if this is a correlation, but we definitely treat them better. Like when JID was coming, where normally I'll negotiate your rider. JID, Earth Gang, YBN, they don't front on their rider. It used to be like you get all this shit and then you have to negotiate it down. Those guys send out a rider, it's like beep boop. You know, it's like okay, a bag of chips. You know what I mean? So we'll go overboard. So with Earth Gang, I mean, we went so overboard. And it was cool because it has this effect where they come in unassuming. We're like, wow, that's cool. And then we treat them so good. And then they're like, wow, you treated us so good. And it just kind of makes their show a little better, whatever. You know what I mean? So that's not just us. I'm sure that's just the trend, you know, with live music. Like it just gets better and better and better and tighter, these productions as they go out, you know. And the turnover amongst the industry is very low. So the same people I was fucking with 20 years ago are the same cats I'm calling, when we kick things off again.
So we're talking a lot about the modern hip hop and like the new wave, I guess. How do you feel about mumble rap?
I mean, what you got to name the artists that you consider mumble rap for me to
Oh
answer.
man, I just know like online, Lil Uzi gets a pretty good amount of hate for mumbling during his songs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I'm going to reserve judgment on that because I've heard his new record is great.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
So,
Yes, sir.
I love Lil Uzi.
And I
Oh, no,
I
I'm
just
a
saw
big
a
fan.
random
Yeah.
song from the new record, and I was like, I fuck with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hold no judgment. So I mean, I heard them call 21 Savage mumble rap, but I'm like, what is mumble rap? If that's mumble rap, what is it? You know?
21 Savage has gotten like his last 2 albums and his like features and stuff. I feel like he's gotten a lot better since like the first album I've heard.
I just like him.
Yeah.
I like the guy. You know what I mean? My son is into all of that. So actually, my son hips me to the shit. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all the like little hit songs that no one would expect me to know, I've been known about them because of my son online playing his games and shit. Like they all share that stuff. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, no, I like it all. I love where it's going. I love where it's going, man. I got artists I love from all the eras.
So speaking of older eras, my dad actually said Blind Pig was one of the first places he ever listened to music at, and it was Nirvana back in the late 80s.
Yeah. The most epic show that ever played was Nirvana. So yeah, no. They actually played twice. They played at least twice, maybe 3 times, but they opened up for Tad before they did the Bleach tour.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the famous tour. And that sold out, and then they said, oh my God, Blind Pig is our favorite venue on earth. And that became a big thing for us,
Mm-hmm.
But that was before my time, but I know the stories well. And the reason it sold out, like the whole Bleach tour was kind of underperforming. But then they came to the Pig and it was sold out in advance. So the reason, and they didn't know this at the time, but the reason was because Soundgarden had played here a week early, literally a week earlier. And had said, Chris Cornell was on the stage going, hey you guys, because they were big way before Nirvana. So he was like, hey you guys, our friends Nirvana are going to be here next week. Don't miss it. So they didn't, you know what I mean? And they came and they played and the kids were rabid. Just like we're super spoiled. I don't know how it is the case, but man, these Ann Arbor crowds get hype, They get so loud and artists come in going, God damn, you know what I mean? And they've been on tour, but they'll come into Ann Arbor and the Blind Pig and something about the sound and the acoustics and when the crowd gets hyped, man, on a sold out show, it is insane.
Ann Arbor, I mean, it does get wild.
Yeah, but that Nirvana show, that was another one where they just got into that feedback loop with our crowd and just fucking loved it. So.
Yeah, I can attest. I can't remember what the venue was. It's part of the university, but I saw Vic Mensa and Little Dicky like 3 years ago when Little Dicky was hot.
Yeah,
and
it was probably Hill Auditorium.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, Hill Auditorium. And man, I did not think U of M kids got that wild.
Yeah,
they go pretty fucking hard.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
I think Vic Mensa. I think that show was put on by the PSG guys down in Columbus. Yeah, Ohio guys put that show on.
Really?
They put a lot of those bigger shows on, and yeah, I so admire the balls on them for taking a chance. Because they had to pay Vic and Lil Dicky.
Mm-hmm.
I got in a lot of trouble once trying to book Lil Dicky because he was with Kara Lewis, who's like the most monstrous hip hop agent of all time. Right? He's with her, I think, to this day. But I put it in to put her in perspective. I've been a buyer for 20 some years. I've never gotten her on the phone. I've never gotten past her fucking intern because she just does not fuck with someone who books a 400 cap rate. Like that's like what? You can't make me no money.
Right.
So, but yeah. So he had to put both those on. Those are like super expensive acts on their own. Lil Dicky though, I called an agent and said, hey, it says in Polestar you have Lil Dicky. And he was like, no, he left. He's with, we don't know where he's at or something like that. So I'm in the process of hunting him down. And somehow I got agents talking to each other about Lil Dicky. And suddenly I got a call from his manager. And Lil Dicky's manager was fucking furious with me because somehow this talk, Lil Dicky thought that Carol Lewis was either mad at him or about to drop him or something. Like, and I had caused that shit in his mind. And yeah, I got cussed the fuck out, man. I was like, no, sir, it wasn't me. You know, I was just trying to look at why this, you know. Oh my God. So, but yeah, that's at that time those were two super expensive acts. So
That's just crazy.
yeah, he did G-Eazy at I think at Hill as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he did a lot of the shows that have come in through Ann Arbor, and it's like, man, it takes balls to do a lot of those, you know. So yeah, you know what I'm saying. So that's what I mean. Like when you mention a show, I think about the people who put it on,
Right?
You know what I mean, and how cool it was for them to put it on, so that you could see that shit. You know what I mean? It's like yeah.
Like if I go to a concert, I'm like, oh yeah, the artist does this and stuff like that. But now I'm really gonna think like, what was behind all this, and how did it get to this point?
Yeah, there's a whole thing, a whole group of people who shepherded that show and that tour and those artists. You know what I mean?
And all the people that took care of them when they were just first coming up, from where they're from.
Yeah, the record labels who are investing in them, and yeah, man, it's insane. It's insane. So it's fun. It's such a vast business that you can, you know, kids come up and they say, what should we study? How do we get in the game? And I'm like, look, there's nothing you can really study.
Right.
So just whatever you study, it's good to study something. So just finish on time. That would impress me. You know what I mean? If you finish on time, that means, hey, you get shit done, you know? But my whole thing is the same way I was like, oh, I'll just start booking my friends' tours. And then that gets me in the door at Prism and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't like Prism asked me to come book. I just kind of kicked in the door and was like, I'm here. You know what I mean? I'm here to book tours. What the fuck? And that's pretty much how all my assistants fucked with me. You know, there's been at least 3 people who I've hired because they walked in and were like, I'm here now. And I want to work for the pig. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I assume you don't mean as a bartender. I'm like, no, of course not. You know, I'm like, okay, sit right there. Let's go. You know? So that's, you know, as far as getting in the game, that's like almost everyone I know has gotten in. They just decided to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, I don't care what I lose, I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So you were in the music scene like late 90s, Ann Arbor, Detroit area.
Mid-90s, yeah.
Mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
What do you know about like Eminem? Did you ever get a chance to see him, talk to him? Like, because I know he was rising around that time.
Yeah, so our timelines are such that I started booking Alvin's in Detroit, which is in the Cass Corridor, right before Eminem started to call that place kind of home. Like that's where he cut his teeth, I think, before he took over St. Andrews.
Yeah.
He was like, Alvin's is like a 300 cap. And then he moved his show over to St. Andrews, I think, at some point. But for a while there, he was cutting his teeth at Alvin's. And so that was right after I had started booking there. So yeah, I kind of was in the game before he was blowing up. And then, so he was like playing Alvin's, and then I was living in Ann Arbor when a friend of mine played me the Slim Shady LP for the first time. And it was like, holy shit. You know what I mean? It was like, I remember where I was when I first heard KRS-One when I was in middle school, right? I'm 50. So that was a long ass time ago. But I remember literally everything about where I was standing and where I was walking, who I was with, and everything when he was like, hey man, check this out. And it's sort of the same exact thing, where I was standing, who gave the shit to me. Like I remember it like vividly when I heard Slim Shady, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God. And then it was like, he's from Detroit, you know? It's like, what? You know? And yeah, he played Alvin's like last year or whatever, you know? It's like, what? I was like, this guy? And then I remember like, I had just gotten into Prism. I had just gotten a gig booking here when he made the cover of Rolling Stone for the first time, you know? And it was like, whoa, you know, like he's totally blowing up, you know? And then our friend Mikey was like D12's tour manager.
Oh, wow.
So we've kind of been watching him, you know, do that thing. And then one time I was actually playing here. I was playing keyboards for Freddie, who is Kid Rock's DJ, may still, but he used to put out his own records and do his own thing, whatever. And then I would play keyboards in the band, you know. And he was playing here one time, and he called his friend Marshall and was like, "Hey, I'm playing. Come on out." And he fucking did. And we had a little VIP cordoned off for him right there. He was sitting right at the drink row, like, watching us play. And I was like on stage and Eminem was behind me. And I was like, oh my fucking God. I turned around and he's sitting there and I was like, oh my God, that's fucking Eminem. But it's like Mikey had brought him, and this is the thing, like, he didn't just show up. Right. You know what I'm saying? Freddie called Mikey. Mikey called Marshall. Was like, yo, we're gonna park in the alley. You know, we're gonna coordinate it. This shit all gets choreographed. You know, but it's not possible unless we have a relationship with Mikey, because Mikey's the guy who Eminem trusts to facilitate it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's these connections that we, you know, so basically, like, our job is to like keep those connections real clean. You know what I mean? So that when Freddie's playing a fucking show and he calls Eminem, you know, be like, hey, come on out. Eminem says, hey, Mikey, can you facilitate this? Mikey says, yeah, I fuck with the Blind Pig. I love them guys. Faith and Jason, great people. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's go do that. And Kid Rock's the same way. Like, Mikey's the one who like facilitated Kid Rock's parking space so we could pull up this fucking whatever the fuck. Ford had just bought him a brand new, or like had designed this new car, and they were like letting Kid Rock rock it. You know what I'm saying? Like out in public.
That's sick.
To get people to like be like, what kind of fucking car is that? So I remember like Kid Rock was that was the first time I'd ever seen that car. And then like you start seeing it like in the next year or whatever. That was cool. But yeah, so that whole experience where people who were at that show were like, oh my God, that's Eminem. That happened because me and Faith keep it real tight with Mikey. You know what I'm saying? That's what it boils down to. The reason we get Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller, and Mac Lamore, blah, 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 is because me and Peter Schwartz are tight. So that's the gig. Making sure that when these cats send artists here, nothing bad happens. Because it doesn't matter that we're the pig. None of that shit matters. If an artist comes here and has a bad time, nobody gives a fuck who we are, you know? And they're gonna play somewhere else next time.
Yeah.
You know? And it goes for all of us. So
seems like you do a great job facilitating those relationships, though.
I at least prioritize them. At the very least, I don't know how good a job I do, but I recognize that is the job.
How has social media changed the game?
Completely. So now, for example, we used to put all our money in print advertising. Right?
Wait, what is that? No.
Exactly. We used to spend like fucking $500 a week on a fucking full page ad in the Metro Times kind of a thing. And that was like, yes, we made enough money to give it all to them. You know what I mean? Like, you just knew that was the way to do it.
Yeah.
That was the way everyone did it. And then suddenly, MySpace and all this shit comes online, and it's like kids aren't picking up Metro Times no more. They're not picking up any print media anymore. And it just became more and more and more obvious. And then too, it was cool because my job as a talent buyer became easier and easier because I could do things like check the MySpace jukebox. Like, you can look at all the industry things, the like standard industry things that people look at to check hotness and relevance and stuff like that. But nothing beats the internet for research. You don't need to pay for any industry shit at all to be effective talent buyer. You just need to know what to be looking at, Facebook shit and YouTube views and stuff like that. SoundCloud, yeah.
Yeah, SoundCloud, definitely a good one too.
Yeah, I just feel like so many people like rise from there.
Yeah, they start coming up on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And it's probably pretty cool because you can see how many followers they have, how many views they have on each song. It's like, it probably makes your job a little easier at least.
Yeah, I don't use SoundCloud too much. The agents do though, to decide who to get. But yeah, SoundCloud is like where you just do comparative. A lot of this is just comparative data. So you'll take an artist who you know does X amount of tickets, and you just compare their numbers to another artist to gauge, are they hotter than that? Are they not as hot? You know, that's a lot of the game. So
I got a good one.
Okay, I'll tell you, man.
This one might be hard for you because you've been in music so long, but if you weren't operating a music venue and you weren't in music, what do you think you'd be doing?
wow. If I weren't in the music business?
Selling receipt papers.
Yeah, right? Oh my god.
I knew it'd be a hard one for you.
That's a hard one. I've never thought about that. I guess coding. I mean, I would just be going for the money, I guess, because I would be very unhappy, and then so I would just be going for the money.
There you go.
So whatever, a stockbroker, I don't know. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm completely stumped. I guess I did. I will admit I did think about it when I read an article. The guy who owns the what is that fucking club called, the Neptune? There's a club in Seattle. A guy owns the hottest club in Numos. That's what it is. He did an interview, and he was like, "Oh my God, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna go out of business. And what am I gonna fucking do? I'm just the guy who owns a bar. I'm not gonna code." You know, he's like, and I was like, coding, you know. But it did. When I read that, I was like, yeah, what the fuck would we all do? You know what I mean? Like, man, when I talk to people, they're like, yeah, it was either gonna be this or jail. You know what I mean? It was gonna be this or drug dealing. It was gonna be, you know, like. People doing this shit, like, especially from my generation, when we were doing this had no future. You didn't really think, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a talent buyer, and then 20 years later, I'm gonna be, you know what I mean? You just were like, I'm a talent buyer for now. You know, as I hustle through the music business or whatever I'm doing, you know. So yeah, you know, it's that's just kind of nuts. What was the original question?
Oh, it was if you weren't in the music industry, what would you be? I think you answered it though.
Yeah, goddamn, you completely stumped me.
That's how it is for a lot of like super passionate people. I feel like they're like, why would I ever think about that? Because I'm in music. I love music.
Yeah. And like literally, I mean, Griselda. I'm big into Griselda records, and my favorite MC right now is West Side Gun.
Okay. And
when I listen to them, they remind me of Wu-Tang, and I'm just like, all I can think is, boy, wouldn't that be great to get West Side Gun at the pit? You know what I mean? Like, everything is just, my whole life is like, revolves around getting artists on that stage, making shit happen for the staff, you know what I mean? Just like, making sure this place is like, doing what it's supposed to be doing, you know? But, yeah, that shit never changes. It just never changes. So it'll be Griselda now. It'll be someone who I'm like excited about getting on the stage down the road. You know, that shit never changes. And then my assistants keep me young because they're just 23 and 22 and 21. It keeps you like very passionate about new shit because they're so fucking passionate about it.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that, like my assistant Nadine was explaining to me the significance of JID at the time. He's like, no, dude, really, And then that gets me to listening to it and like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, Yeah, it's just, man, the shit is endless. So yeah, I just can't imagine. If the shit went down, the worst happened. Like this is a conversation I've had with other people. If the shit went down, the worst happens. All that we're gonna do is find a building and throw illegal parties. Like, this shit's not gonna stop, because unless artists stop touring, then agents are going to call me, whether I'm retired or not, whether I'm out of the game or not. They're gonna call me to say, are you really out of the game? You know what I mean?
Whether you're at the Blind Pig or warehouse down the road.
Yeah. Or on my dad's couch again. You
or
know
the
what I
blind
mean?
fox.
You know what I mean? Like, well, does your dad have a basement? How many people fit in the basement? Like, can you get a keg into the basement? Like, it's the shit don't stop, because there's never not going to be this biological urge to go see live the music that you enjoy. Like, that's just a fundamental fact of human existence.
Yeah.
You know, so there's no reason to stop. I called the 930 Club again. I called Seth when this shit went down, because I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? You know? And Seth was like, I'd heard he retired. So, because I don't talk to him often. There's some cats you only call when you are in the shit. And like, so I called him and I was like, man, I think the job here is to just chill and wait, you know, and let the agents do their thing and whatever. And but I said, but I know you're retired. He's like, I'll retire when I'm dead. You know what I mean? He's like, I got shit. I always got some shit going. I'm like, yeah, that's how we all are. That's how we all are. It doesn't really matter if we're getting paid. We're gonna facilitate shows.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is something that anybody that's wanting to enter the industry, whether it's as a musician or as like a talent coordinator, what is something that they should know?
They should know that their reputation is everything.
Okay.
If you piss people off, you can fucking forget it. Like, that shit may work with your girlfriend. That shit may work with your little crew of beta men who like follow you, but that shit don't work with me.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna work with no one I know. So there's a ton of musicians who, like, not a ton. There is a small minority.
There's a handful.
Handful of musicians who are dicks, right? And who have a sense of entitlement and like feel like I have no problem with someone thinking they're the best. Like, hey, more power to you. But walking around with no humility and not understanding that we're all in this together. Like, your success is mine is yours. Like, the club can't exist without you. You can't exist without the club. You know, it's all symbiotic. Like, you gotta know that shit. You know, you can get way further being cool, knowledgeable, and learning from your mistakes. You can get way further with less talent. You know what I mean? You can be marginally talented, but be a cool motherfucker and be on top of your shit, do what's expected of you, and you'll be supported because people will like you. They'll want you to be in the game. They'll give you every opportunity to not suck. You know what I mean? But conversely, you can be wildly talented and just be impossible to deal with, and that shit will catch up with you. It'll catch, and more today than ever. More today than ever. Nobody's got to tolerate a dick anymore. Fuck you. That's gonna be the universal response. So chill the fuck out. Be patient. Do your thing. Work. Oh, I think that's civil. Can you look? Do your thing and fucking like, we're all in this together. Like, and you'll go very far. And if you're talented and you move like that, I mean, forget about it. Like, if you're just a cool person and you're working and you're hustling and people see that your focus is on the music and making your music, if you're a musician, if your focus is clearly on your music and making your music the best it can be, the industry reacts to that, and you just try to stay on your game. The industry, the automatic response is to support you, especially if you're good, especially if the shit is good. So yeah, that's the thing to remember. Like, also, if you're a musician coming up and you are scared, like you feel like, oh, I gotta get a manager, I gotta get an agent, I gotta get a publicist. You know what I mean? You haven't even played 2 shows and you're thinking about getting an agent. You know what I mean? Understand, no one's fucking with you until you can make them some money. So just never mind all that. Never mind. Unless you're making money, you can forget it. The days of somebody picking you up, putting you on a 6-week tour when you're nobody are over, right? So don't even worry about it. Do it all yourself until, I always tell bands, when you can headline in 5 not major markets, just 5 markets. If you could headline in Toledo, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Ann Arbor, if you can do that, by the time you can do that, the industry will find you. You know, you don't got to worry about finding an agent. They'll find you because you'll be a band that can make some money. Mm-hmm. And cats will come at you like, hey, I can make you more money. You know what I mean? But they're not coming until they know you're a product. You are a product that generates revenue. So relax. That's my advice to musicians. Just fucking relax. Have a good time. Stay on your P's and Q's. Develop on your own. Don't waste all your fucking time looking for industry. That's just a silly endeavor, you know. And that's time better spent throwing a fucking house party. Mm-hmm. Getting your crew like more hype about you. You know what I mean? Just party and have fun and do your thing, and we'll find you. These agents, to this day, I don't know how they find these artists so quickly when they'll be just hot for the just spark, and there's a fucking bidding war for it. You know what I mean? I remember when Iggy Azalea was unknown in America, and I was researching A$AP Rocky when he first started. And then YouTube had like a suggested clip, and it was Pussy by Iggy Azalea. And it was like, what the fuck is that? I was like, I'm calling agents like, do you have Iggy Azalea? I'm like, what the fuck? And like, I want to marry this woman. And it came back, it was funny because it came back, they were like, yeah, we looked at her, but she doesn't do live shows. She's terrible at live shows. So we're not fucking with her because she has no future. And that was like grizzled industry agents were like, nah, we'll pass on that.
She's doing pretty well now.
Well, she skipped, they were right because she skipped the kind of the club circuit. She went right to like 1,000 cap rooms, and then immediately tried to vault into arenas. Like she wasn't interested in touring so much. Yeah. She wanted to make loot when she was out touring, so but they were kind of right because her approach did not work, you know, in the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's had at least 3 tours canceled.
Oh wow!
Because of ticket sales. Because the artists know, like the agents in the game know, like you, in order to be a Wiz Khalifa, he put in the work. He toured relentlessly before anybody heard fucking Black and Yellow. You know what I mean? He had been out. Ben had an audience, Ben selling out shows, like working religiously. His mom there are stories about him, man. His mom used to drive him from Pittsburgh to Detroit for bullshit gigs where it was just like, yeah, you and 1,000 other rappers on some Monday night fucking show for nothing. And his mom, he'd have his fucking moms drive him out. Like there's cats like that. Like you just want to support them, especially when they got talent. I mean, it's like, oh my God. And when I heard Deal or No Deal, it was like, well, this is obviously talent. Then you're like, well, and he's got Peter Schwartz fucking with him, and Peter Schwartz does not fuck with just anybody. So the kid must have that thing that Peter likes, you know, that commitment. So, you know, that's just how it all works. So there's a certain comfort you can take if you're a musician. Like, as long as you're good and as long as you're a nice guy and you're diligent you're serious and diligent, other people see that and they want to help you. You know, if they see that you're just a flake or you're, you know, a weekend warrior, nobody has time for that. You know, you're never going to be something that makes anybody some money, so they're not going to get behind you. And there's too many people who are desperately, wildly trying to make it happen. So there's just no time to waste like that. And then if you're industry, again, you just have to literally smoke some pot, or do some mushrooms or some peyote, go out in the fucking desert, spend some time dreaming up your dream gig in the industry. The shit that you think is literally the pinnacle, the best job you could possibly get, all right? Identify what company that is, right? And then go kick the fucking door down and be like, yeah, I don't know shit, but I'm here, you know? I guarantee you, everybody, the receptionist, everyone in the fucking place will be like, "Kid's got balls," just like me. Especially when you're young. The younger you are, the better, because like.
You see rappers at like 14 coming up nowadays.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
I'm talking about industry though. I'm talking about people who want to be in the industry side of things, whether that's record label, publicist, talent buyer, whatever, club owner, anything that you can dream up. The thing about the music industry is that everyone in the game, like, we all got here just through fucking sheer balls and stupidity. You know what I mean? It's like we didn't know any better. That's how we got here. We didn't know how dumb it was to go for this, you know, because we were young and just full of passion. So, like, those are the people who are now in charge of all these fucking companies that you look at like, oh my God, you know, they were just like you know what I mean? And just scrapping and fighting. When I got the gig at Prism Productions, like I say, I'm talking all this shit about booking tours. He knows I'm full of shit. He knew the moment I opened my mouth, he knew I was full of shit. The thing was, I was in a band that was working really hard in Ann Arbor. And so he recognized from the band that I was about it. You know what I mean? That, well, I book, you know, my company throws shows. This kid is in a band and he's serious about his shows. He promotes his shows really well. So therefore he knows how important that is and you know, so I'm getting the gig for other reasons, but if I don't come in and kick the door down, I'm not getting that gig. Industry people don't put out ads, you know what I mean? They just wait for real motherfuckers to come at them because those are the ones you feel like you can really go somewhere with. When the guy who is now in charge of all media and shit at Majestic right now, when he was working for me, he literally he graduated cum laude from Western and had just graduated. He had worked on one show with me in Kalamazoo, just one. And he called me after graduation like, yo, I just want to work there. You don't have to pay me. I'm going to live in Rochester in my girlfriend's attic. And I'll just drive to Ann Arbor every fucking day, you know? And I was like, well, okay, you know, what the fuck am I supposed to say to that? No, you know what I mean? So that's sort of how it is. So he gets his foot in the door, and I'm just like, all right, do this, do this and this and this and this. And then I start to rely on him. Then he becomes essential, you know what I'm saying? And then he becomes hella valuable. You know, and that's just how we all get going. So really, it starts with you coming up with an idea of what you think the dream gig is in the music industry, and then just literally going and busting the door down. They'll probably, at the very least, be like, all right, just wash my car. All right, let's see how good you wash my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, your spirit is what will get you through. Your whole, the passion, like the whole industry, man, the OG agents and stuff. There's this cat, Frank Riley, out at High Road Touring. He's just I don't even know this man, right? But the way he books his bands and the way the care he takes with everything and man, you just know this guy he can't literally do anything but this, right? So if you feel the same, if you feel like I was born to be an agent, I know, you know, what, you know, where bands should be. I just feel like I know this, you know what I mean? If a person like that kicks in Frank's door in Sausalito, California, I'm sure he has an immaculate office, right? If you kick down the door, he's gonna recognize your spirit and be like, I gotta fuck with this kid. Like he came all the way from Detroit. He came all the way from U of M. Just kicked my fucking door in. I called the cops. But I had to bail him out of jail. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like, because you don't see people like that all the time in this game. People are too timid. And so, you know, it's that way. And like I say, I'm not quitting. Obviously, I'm not quitting my gig anytime soon. So if you don't kick down the door, I mean, I'm not leaving. So I have to be pushed out. Someone has to come in and you know, I always imagine like one of the people I bring up will finally, I'll just be like, okay, kick me out. I'm ready, kick me out, you know. But nobody's leaving voluntarily. the people that are in the game on the industry side, when I came in 20 years ago, that I had to interview with and stuff like that, are still in the game, are still above me. You know what I mean? I'm still the new guy compared to them, you know, so yeah, it's on and on, man.
That's wild.
It's way bigger than me, you know, so.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so some fun and off-topic questions real quick. So what is your hometown?
And by that you mean?
Where'd you spend the most time as a kid in your youth? Where'd you spend the most time?
My parents were kind of gypsies, man. So I like literally from preschool, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, I lived in a different city.
Oh my God.
I don't really have like a childhood home.
Yeah.
So I always consider Detroit kind of like my home because I settled there after college. But then, you know, Ann Arbor is where I've spent the majority of my life.
Right on.
I've been here since I was 27. So
Okay.
I've never been anywhere that long. So.
Nice.
So what's the best restaurant around here?
Mickey's, a block down the street.
Yeah.
I'm into sushi, so that's the best sushi I'm aware of.
Want to hit that on the way out, Joe?
It's like a block that way. It's the best.
Oh man.
But you gotta like do carry out, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Shoot.
we do carry out, you know what I mean? That's how good they are.
Shit. All right. Is there a hangover recipe?
Yes, the Fleetwood, a block.
He told me about that on the way here. He's like, yep.
Yeah, greasy food. So, you know, the ultimate 24-hour greasy spoon diner.
We literally drove by, and I told him that because I was here last summer, and I was at one of the clubs down here, live, I think. And it was like fucking 5 a.m. We were all just real hammered and walked back, went to the Fleetwoods.
Blind Pig, we got Miki
so
right
good.
there. So after sound check, you go hit Miki. And then you walk like 2 blocks that way to the dispensary.
Yeah.
Right? We had one of the first dispensaries in the state, the legal one. And then you go get some Fleetwood, you know. And you haven't walked any more than 5 blocks total. So I love that about it.
That's awesome. So I feel like you might have a pretty cool one for this. What's the most thrill-seeking thing you've ever done?
I don't seek thrills. That's the thing. I don't seek them out. Shit happens to me, you know.
All right, last question. Always got to ask the guest this one. Do you have any good or crazy ghost stories?
You know, I went to Olivet College, so
Shout out.
everyone at Olivet knows that ghosts exist. Like, we all come in as freshmen not believing in ghosts. But then there's the female dorm is built on a fucking cemetery. They literally just put the headstones in the cemetery across the street. It looks there's a cemetery across the street from Dole Hall. It's just the fucking headstones.
All the bodies are underneath the dormitory.
Underneath Dole Hall.
Holy shit.
So the whole goddamn thing is haunted as fuck. And everybody knows it. And so the freshmen fuck with Ouija boards and stuff.
Yeah.
Get fucked with constantly. I remember I was an RA, and like it's literally so bad. There's like a professor there who just goes around doing exorcisms and stuff. Like it's serious shit. And then
So you were an RA? No.
I was an RA. Yeah, I was an RA, and I would tell people just don't fuck with Ouija boards because people have these crazy freaked out experiences every time. So just do yourself a favor. Like this, we're fucking haunted as fuck. Don't fuck with that stuff. And these kids, they inevitably, go to the oldest building on campus and do fuck with Ouija board, books coming off shelves and stuff. Like, yes, I believe in ghosts. Shit is real. Just don't. Be kind. I think it's like the music business. Just don't fuck with ghosts, and they won't fuck with you. That's what I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, this was fun.
Where can people find you? Blindpig.com?
Blindpigmusic.com.
Blind Pig Music? What are your socials?
What is the social? I don't know. I don't know what the social is for Instagram. Facebook is Blind Pig Music AA. Instagram is, I think Instagram might be the same.
Or I think it might be A2 or A squared.
Yeah. So, that's where you can find the pig. I'm just Jason at goodshowlive.com. That's my company.
the pig prides itself on, we really try to accommodate every band that calls. Like we try not to blow nobody off. You know, it was better when it was phones, when everybody used phone. Now like emails pile up, so I get back to people slow, and they think I'm blowing them off, but like really it ain't about the tours for us. It's about the local music. No matter how many sweet fucking shows play here, it's all about the local music for us.
For sure. All right, well, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Right.
That was good.